back on October 1st of 2021. And he lets us know that this isn't a 4-year election where the outcome is going to be decided for 4 years. So he uses 4 twice. So could this be another coded message from Juan? Just like the 2 V's that formed to make the W, as McAfee told us to listen carefully to discover the true meaning of Watch the Water. The meaning being that those in office will be removed prior to the 2024 election to establish a new foundation and flush out the evil, or more specifically, flush out the evil power structure. Now, in this same interview with Jaco, Juan talks about the 80+%, the consensus that's necessary to avoid civil war. And he points out that that figure really is kind of the inverse of 19.5. And, it really is probably an accurate figure of the die-hard base that's never going to wake up, the useful idiots. Now, on April 29th of 2022, this year, McAfee posted that he said, quote, "Hearts on fire, saving the best for last. The end is right around the corner." Now, to spell hearts, he substituted a 3 and a 4 for the E. So hearts reads H34RTS. Now, in addition to a sum of 7, which again, as I pointed out, God's holy number of perfection, it's also a reference to Q drop 34, which says, quote, "On POTUS's order, a state of temporary military control will be actioned and special ops be carried out." Now, I find it interesting that once again, we see the numbers 3 and 4, specifically 11.3 and 11.4. He kind of gets into what's coming next, or what we can expect. He starts with McAfee's 5/5/22 post, which says, quote, "The Great Awakening, 11.4, operators are active." So again, a loud and clear comm, 11.4, occupation of DC began on April 11th, 2022. Then he references a Trump comm on Truth Social, posted on April 30th, 2022 at 10:41, which equals 11.4 if you drop the 0, which basically was confirming the 11.4 date, the takeover date, or I should say the 4/11 takeover date, if you think mirror. So Jetson provides some really interesting comm analysis, and he actually talks a lot about the comms regarding the White House security team. And McAfee told us that we are watching it live as it happens in real time. So perhaps, as Jetson concludes, this may have been a clue to pay attention to the White House live feed, specifically the rooftop security protocols, which have changed since the 4/11 military takeover. So he shows what appears to be a larger number of, I guess you could say, foot soldiers guarding and entering the White House behind the barrier that we've seen erected around the lawn, which has since been removed. And then on April 24th, McAfee posted, "You have to take out the sun to stop this. I bet you won't be sleeping on the floor anymore." Of course, when he's talking about sleeping on the floor, he's referencing the National Guard, the troops that were famously made to sleep on the floor of car garages, or parking garages, back in January of 2021 for fake Biden's administration. But when he says you have to take out the sun to stop this, he could be referring to Horus, which is their evil sun god. But it's quite clear that the men atop the White House are actively observing the Potomac. He shows us this. It's observable from the live feeds, and really he's not caught this before up until now. Now, on May 4th, 2022, he shows this video. These men appear to be literally watching the water very intently. And Jetson suggests that these individuals could be from the Army Corps of Engineers, perhaps surveyors and not Secret Service after all. And then, as I mentioned, they took down the barrier, seems to have been removed on May 6th. And this barrier, of course, was temporarily surrounding the White House. And then what they did was they took the barrier down, but then they changed the position of the live feed camera to a position that's much farther away. And that, to me, would seem to suggest that the Army Corps of Engineers has been watching the water of the Potomac and actively preparing the White House for this flooding event. And who knows? I mean, it could be that the barrier was to ensure operational security during this preparation phase, which has now been concluded. Now, towards the end of the video, Jetson points out that Junior's Cessna call sign is still flying today, and it's providing clues. Now, the first flight path he highlights is from, you guessed it, 4/11. But this is 4/11/2021. And then another, I believe, from May 13th of 2021. And both of these flight paths, circle the Potomac, and they do hint at Juan's reference about how the Persians and the Medes used the Euphrates to defeat Babylon. Could this be what this is all about? So what began on 4/11 and apparently ended on 5/8 was the installation of troops in D.C., which was really part of a 4-part operation. And then on May 9th, Monkey Works, there's another video that's referenced, and Monkey Works is, in that video, he's identified a temporary flight restriction zone related to the Potomac. So the indications are that the East Coast has been a hotbed of military aircraft activity, or really just military activity in general, but specifically aircraft, as Monkey Works brilliantly points out, specifically C-17s. And so he comes to the conclusion that they're moving assets in and around D.C., and they've been doing this since early May of this year, folks. So something major is getting ready to go down. And this buildup has been happening for several months. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, nothing is happening, think again. To me, it's undeniable that the military is staging for an event. That they're moving in MREs, they're moving in munitions. They're moving in heavy equipment, all up and down the eastern seaboard, but specifically concentrated, of course, around D.C. And so Jetson shows a screenshot quote from the Army Corps of Engineers website that says, "Expect the unexpected." And then he cross-references it with McAfee's post on April 29th of 2022, which alludes to the storm. And above it, cues words, "Expect us." Now, the area of the water that the Army Corps of Engineers were spotted watching is called the tidal basin. And more specifically, it's the tidal basin of the Potomac, which was created really to provide a means of draining the larger body of water, from the Washington Canal after high tide. And so Jetson provides evidence to suggest that both the Q drops and really the McAfee drops, which are one and the same, allude to lunar cycles affecting the tides, which have been essential to the rollout of this plan. And just like the lunar cycles, nothing can stop what's coming. And finally, he references an excerpt from Juan's book, The Kid by the Side of the Road, which seems to imply that the military is going to cordon off D.C. entirely, which it seems they've already done, and they're going to have entry and exit points to allow civilians to flee. And then after 3 days, they're going to drop pamphlets, just like they did before, all these major invasions in the past, telling everybody what's going on, telling them to get out. But then after 3 days, anyone remaining there is going to be considered an enemy combatant. And then, of course, likely alongside of this, we're going to have all these announcements on the EBS. So this is an incredible video. It ends with yet another McAfee post from May 4th of this year asking, quote, "When the Potomac is diverted, what will be revealed?" End quote.